the TEFL Commute, Season 7, Episode 3, in which we return to Room 101.
Hi everyone, Shaun here. So yeah, we're going back to room 101 today, and we're going to have a round table where we discuss some things we'd like to put in room 101. If you're a regular listener to the TEFL Commute, then you'll know that we first went there in season 4, episode 4. So it's time to revisit. And joining me around the table today are...
I'm Lindsay Clanfield, co-host of the TEFL Commute.
This is James Taylor, regular producer of the TEFL Commute.
Hi, and I'm Ceri Jones, an occasional guest on the TEFL Commute.
Yeah, sorry, Carrie, we rather set you up there, didn't we? Regular, occasional. We don't see you as occasional. Anyway, let's get on with the episode. So, Room 101 revisited. So, Room 101 is the place where you put all your fears, your greatest fears. In this case, we're going to put things related to language teaching. If you've never heard of Room 101 before, check out 1984 by George Orwell. At this point in an episode, Lindsay would probably say this is a podcast about teaching, in which the subject of teaching might or might not come up, but it will definitely come up today. So in turn, I'm going to invite the people around the table to give me their answer to the topic we have chosen, and then after we've all had a chance to have some input, we'll decide which was the worst one. Okay, folks, are you ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Okay.
So our first topic is questions we get from students or family or friends about TEFL. James, would you like to tell us your question?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was reading a book the other day called Messaging by George Woolard. Don't know if you've heard of it, Lindsay.
Yes. Yeah, no, great little book.
Fine publication. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you'd agree. And in that book, he was talking about how people that in his family and friends sort of act with amazement at the fact that he doesn't use the student's language when he's teaching English. And so basically that's my question, is the thing that people say, but how do you teach English if you don't use their language? You know, I think that's the thing that seems to confuse people who aren't English teachers. I don't know if you guys have been on the end of that question as well.
I have, but now I teach in Spain, where I do speak their language and will use it as part of the teaching. So it hasn't happened to me for a while.
It's kind of this perception, I guess, that people go off to a country to teach, and this presumption that therefore they must speak the language, isn't it? So yeah, obviously I teach mainly in Oxford now, so I've got multilingual classes, so that doesn't come up very often.
I don't know. I've had that come up when I was teaching in the UK. People would go, wow, how many languages do you speak? That kind of expecting that you can speak all of the different languages that are in the classroom.
Well, which would be nice, wouldn't it?
So, it'd be lovely if we did.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? Okay, so James has opened up then, but how can you do that if you can't speak the language? Ceri, what would you like to put in Room 101 for this topic?
Okay, mine's an even kind of bigger, more open question. It's the actual whole question of, but what is your job? Because then when you say teacher, they automatically think that I teach in a school, sort of like a mainstream state school. And then, so they automatically think I teach kids. And so there's so many little hurdles of, well, no, I don't teach in a school. Well, no, actually, I teach adults. Well, what do you teach adults? And it becomes, there's people who've never had a language course as an adult just get completely confused by the whole concept. And I think we both just get bored with the conversation before it even comes to an end. So that's my most hated.
I had exactly that kind of exchange once with an immigration officer going into the UK. I don't know why I had to prove myself as I was entering my own country, but anyway. And then he was exactly that thing. Go, oh, okay, you're a teacher. Which school do you work in? Well, I don't work in a school. And then he's like, What?
Yeah.
How can you?
Strangely enough, I had that question asked to me about 3 hours ago when I did say I'm a teacher. Oh, in secondary. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, but if you don't work in a school, then how can you be a teacher? And I was like, well, there are other ways. Grown-ups have lessons too.
To teach, yes, yeah. And also there's that thing, oh, you're an English teacher, so you teach Shakespeare.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true as well. Or I guess I better watch my grammar then. Ha ha.
Oh, yes.
Which,
yeah.
to be fair, is probably true.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Speak for
do you
yourself.
not correct people? I correct my family all the time on their grammar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they must love
Yeah.
you.
Oh, you're that guy.
There are other reasons behind that, Carrie. But anyway,
You're that guy.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What my sister did buy me I think it's a meme now, but many years ago, the cup that that says I'm sat here silently correcting your grammar. So
on a t-shirt.
Lindsay, we've had 2 good openers there. What are you bringing into this topic?
Okay, the question I get from friends or acquaintances or people I know about being a teacher is not just restricted to TEFL. I think most teachers get this. It's along the lines of like, oh, wow, you great long holidays. So this is more as a North American, where in North America there's a tendency for very short holidays, unlike in Europe where you might have longer holidays. But still, that kind of like, oh, it's great to have long holidays, which really would bother me when a few years when I was teaching at a private school, I wouldn't be paid for the long holidays. So lots of language teachers in the private sector you're given a 9-month contract. You finish the contract in June, and then that's why everyone runs off to do summer schools in the UK or the US or wherever, because you don't get paid your long holidays like perhaps some state school teachers get paid. So that was often sort of an annoyance for me, that question there.
Yeah, and actually, I think for me that's got more annoying the longer I've been in the profession, because actually I get summer, and I think it's probably the same for you, Lindsay, especially, that is one of my busiest times, because that's when a lot of the teacher training courses are. So we actually work throughout that. But do North Americans have short holidays? Because I know that their school system finishes well before the British one.
Oh, the schools have their long holidays. That's the
Right.
same. But most people working, like, I mean, in Europe, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks mandatory in France and Spain or things like that. Whereas,
Right.
if you're on a year-long contract. But my brother, after 10 years as an engineer, senior engineer, finally got up to 3 weeks holiday in the year. Like his 3rd paid week was a big thing in the family.
Yeah.
That was after ages. So yeah.
It's true. Okay, so if you'd like to know what I'm going to bring to the counter, I'm not going to bring a current question. I'm going to bring something that used to annoy me when I first started, and for many years when I first started. It's, when are you going to get a proper job? And I think the impression, I think EFL has changed, but obviously way back when I first started, it was very much a kind of this perception of the backpacking holiday, go teach abroad, especially since I went to Greece, I guess, a nice hot country for teaching with. But it used to annoy me no end, and then after I got very qualified and became reasonably good at the job, it still annoyed me to, when are you going to get a proper job?
Well, I think it does get more annoying the more one gets qualified, and then the more you resent people who actually do go in the profession like that. So I think that's one of the banes of the ELT world, isn't it? Is one of the sort of the lodestones around the neck of ELT is the infamous backpacker teacher.
Yeah, but what's quite interesting from all 4 questions is how much there is an odd perception of our industry. All 4 things are in common. This long holidays, need to teach the language, not a proper job, those kind of things. Maybe we have issues with image that we need to, as an industry, address. There you go. Political soapbox in Room 101. Okay then. So which of those things shall we get rid of? Which question? Which question are we going to put in the room?
It's difficult.
I don't know if we'll be able to. I think we might have to say all of them.
Yes, don't just if you ever meet us, don't ask us those questions.
Yeah, but come on, that's not how the rules work, is it? We got to decide on one.
Okay, so I think that the global "what is your job" question it doesn't include the holidays, though, does it?
I think the holidays.
No, but it kind of does.
Yeah,
it kind of does.
I think the holidays is the most annoying one.
Yeah.
Okay,
no.
so what is your job? I think is the one that annoys me the most now. So I'm going to go for that one.
So what does that mean?
That's my choice. I believe I'm
Oh,
moderator.
Sean
you're the
decides.
moderator.
You
choose.
Yeah, I'm the
I think-
moderator. I've chosen. Kerry, your question is in room 101. Thank you
Yay.
very
There
much.
you go.
Thank you, Sean.
And we'll be back with category 2 after this break.
Hello, producer James here with a quick message to say thank you for listening to this, the 7th season of the TEFL Commute podcast. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. It's easy, just get in touch with us at our email address, teflcommute@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to Room 101 Revisited. We've already got rid of a question, and now we're going to get rid of a topic. So our second category is topics we don't like teaching now. Okay, so topics we don't like teaching now. Lindsay, would you like to open up for us?
Okay. Well, see, now that I know that I'm not pitching this in general, I'm pitching it to you because you're going to be the one deciding. No. I'm approaching this like a TEFL fight. You know, I've got to get my one in. All right, so here's my one. This topic is one which is, you know, you really feel like it should be in there. And people who aren't in education think that this topic is vitally important to teach. And you always talk about it's really, we must have something on this. It's got to be in the syllabus. It's got to be in the book. You got to teach something like this. But, you know, if you're a teacher, you will understand why, what I'm saying here. And the topic I choose is the environment. It is so hard to make a really kind of fun / interesting and not depressing and more importantly outcome-oriented class than one on the environment and like climate change and stuff in general. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's not important or it cannot be interesting. It could be interesting, but just doesn't seem to go anywhere. Like these topics about, I don't know, an inconvenient truth or melting polar caps or changing weather because of climate change or even climate change denial or any of those kind of things that might kind of go around the environment or like, you know, protecting parks or green spaces. It always tends to seem worthy and it's very hard to see what people would say about it at the end because everyone is kind of left. If you want a class where a topic where everyone is going to be talking and you might have different opinions, the environment is not your best choice. That's my pitch.
Just a follow-up question on that, Lindsay. Obviously, you're a writer as well.
Yeah.
Is your dislike of that topic also because it's difficult to write about? You struggle.
Maybe it is. Maybe it probably is. And Kerry will probably attest to because I probably complained about this with her, commiserated with her because we've written on projects together. But probably it is because writing the material, your climate change or an environmental lesson just is hard to think of like where it goes at the end. So even thinking of like really amazing examples of terrible storms or it's just sort of what happens at the end. What do the students talk about? You know, where do you get to a situation in that topic where it isn't everyone just kind of shaking their head and saying either, oh, I know, isn't that terrible? You know, it's sort of like this. Where else is it going to go? It's not like choosing clothes or talking about families or talking about films or talking about entertainment, technology, internet. You know, where you could have a variety of opinions. There is almost a global consensus, or should be, on the climate, unless you have someone who's like a complete climate change denier, and then that makes a topic pretty awful in class if you have someone saying it's all untrue. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in that situation, like some kind of mini.
It's like discussing
exactly, and saying this is all just untrue, and you know, giving me all of that stuff. That wouldn't make it more fun. So
it's I'm kind of smirking to myself because, and I know that you're not. Obviously, you are somebody that as a person is, you know, very pro environment and all that.
Oh,
but
yeah,
we started
podcast.
No, we started podcasting because you were a member of the Global Issues Special Interest
Group. I know.
That's the reason we started podcasting, and now you're sat here going.
I know. Well, but I've always felt that the environment. There are other global issues one can do, but I've always felt the environment was the difficult one.
I remember a specific moment of going, okay, so today's class we're going to talk about global warming and this sort of collective intake from these teenage students and this sort of eye roll like a Mexican wave that went across the classroom. It's just like, oh God, not this again.
I know.
Because the thing is, they've done it loads of times, right, in English class. But the thing is, they don't just get it in English class as well. They're getting it in other subjects as well when they're at school. So they're just like, oh man, are we talking about climate change yet again? You know, it's just like it's and so I can. So
do we actually need to hear any more arguments then? Because you're all pretty much saying
go on. I've made my case. I'm gonna go. I'm lying down now.
So James, what are you gonna try and nudge environment out with?
When I think about teaching with course books, which I'm not against, of course, but one of the big problems I have with them is the subject matter, and of course, if you teach a number of course books at the same time, and over a course of months and years, then you see like you get those kind of topics. The environment being an example, where it just keeps coming back and back and back and back, right? So you're like, oh, this again, And one of those topics, the one that I find most tiresome, even though I really love the subject outside of the classroom, is technology. Well, every time I see a technology unit in a class book, in a course book, I just think, oh no, here we go again. Because this book was published, I don't know, written 3 or 4 years ago, and it might as well have been like, oh, do you use a fax machine? I mean, like, there's no... I just don't understand. I mean, I know there's 2 course book writers here, but if I was writing a course book, I would try and maybe find a way of using technology, but don't talk about technology now, because no matter what you do, it is going to be out of date, And then it's my job is to repair it.
What you're forgetting in this process is this sway of the editor, James.
Well, I know there may be reasons, but I just, like, every time I open it, I look at it and go, oh man, my students, especially with teenagers, they're going to look at it and think, what is this, And then they're being asked to, you see course books, even with things like MySpace and things like that. You think, oh,
that's using old course books, man. You got to keep up with the. That's a planned obsolescence.
So you've got to basically buy a new course book every 2 years.
Well, obsolescence is always a good way of coming at it. So let's have a look at this page. What on this page has this
I have to admit that more and more now in course books, we're often talking about, if you can avoid it, avoid having images of phones or people holding phones.
Oh, yes.
Because we're
unless you're going for the retro.
Yeah.
Because that's always the way in as well, is like, let's just make it the first one.
Retro is coming back.
Well, and I mean, unless you want to do it in I don't know, I was thinking you could do it like the technology from the past, and then you could talk about,
like the biggest things in the noughts, for example.
Yeah, or what did people think technology would be like in the 1950s, and how did they predict the future?
With Ceri still to come in, let's just weigh this up a minute. So we've got I think, while you might not like the topic, you've already suggested lots of ways that you could use the topic to further conversation, unlike environment, which everybody...
Not only are we being judged, but we're being judged on a sort of rolling, continuous basis. I don't know. I don't like this. I think you should wait to the end. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to recut this.
You said Shaun, you be the host. All right, yes. Let's see if this makes the final edit. Ceri, sorry. What topic would you like to ditch and get into room 101?
Okay, so I'm not going for any preamble. I'm just going for the word itself. I find dated. I don't know anybody who has them anymore. Hobbies.
Hobbies.
Really? What's your favourite hobby? And I go like, a hobby. I don't have a hobby. I've never had collecting stamps or stuff like that comes to mind. And what's your hobby, Shaun?
Growing roses.
Growing roses. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's good.
As silence falls over the table. Can't think of many of my
teenage students who'd be.
Yeah, exactly.
I think nonplussed is the word
you'd
that
kind of pass on to the next student.
My reaction to that. Okay.
I think we know what the winner is, but just for completion, based on the conversation, I'm actually going to change mine for the one I said in the original notes for the show. I'm going to go for cultural holidays. It occurs to me that the lesson I hate, the period I hate teaching the most is Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Mainly because having lived in one country for 14 years, and you get to know what the Czech Republic, so you get to know what the routines are for Christmas. So you do the Christmas lesson, you talk about that, this, that, and the other, and then you have, because your students are new to you, you have to feign interest in all the things that are done at Christmas. Oh really? Do you have carp? Oh right, okay. Just to get the conversation going. So my entry is Christmas, but I think...
Yeah, because you decided right at the beginning, so there you go.
Yeah,
and then made that abundantly clear to everybody.
I just can't get out of my mind the image of Shaun tending his roses.
It
with
is.
little clippers.
I'm going to post pictures of my roses on the webpage now. It's lovely, you spend all day in technology.
Okay, all right. Hold on. No, let's stop this, because I can feel he's about to go off on one. So let's. This is the bit where you say we have a break, Shaun.
No, this is the bit where I'm thinking, why did I invite to? Anyway, okay, so we've got one more area coming up after this break. Welcome back to Room 101. I think this could possibly be the last episode ever of the TEFL Commute, the way we're going.
Oh, come on, don't be like that.
So far today, we have got rid of the question about being what is a teacher to you. We've got rid of the environment, and so for our final submission, we are going to look at pronunciation. So our final topic, ladies and gentlemen, is a pronunciation point. Which pronunciation point would you gladly put in Room 101? And Ceri, would you like to get us up and running with this one?
Okay. My favorite most hated pronunciation point is the difference between can and can't.
Here.
Because I really have to make an
totally.
effort even to say can't. And it's kind of all part of that bundle of RP stuff, and really, does it matter? Can't, that's fine as well. Lindsay, how do you say it?
Can't.
But is it Kant's a philosopher?
Can't, okay. See, that's like...
As long as you pronounce the T, and as long as you're careful that it's not another vowel sound in there, then...
Yeah.
Yes, quite, yeah. Yes, all right.
But it's more about stress. It's more about sentence stress. It's not about sounds.
That's true.
You got to get over it with these RP sounds and things like bath and bath and tooth and tooth and all that stuff.
So James, the two coursework writers are offering their own little word.
The Welsh and the Canadian, sticking up for non-RP accents.
I agree with Ceri, but I just want to say that it's not exclusive to RP. I don't speak RP, but I say can't. So I don't want to be accused of speaking RP.
That's true.
Okay, right. Okay, let's move on swiftly. Let's go. Let's actually, James, go on then. What are you? Let's break up the coursework writers. So, James, what are you offering?
Well, in an act of blatant self-sabotage, I know what you're going to say, because this is actually a point that I do quite enjoy teaching. But the thing is, I'm looking for your clemency, because if you teach English like I do or spent most of my career doing, to people who speak Portuguese or Spanish as their first language, then the ED endings I've just taught it like thousands of times. So I actually quite enjoy teaching it, but it's almost like every student I've ever had in those countries, I've had to teach this to. And, I'm sure anyone who's taught people from those backgrounds.
Well, you could argue that ED endings then is putting food on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there's other things to worry about. Don't worry.
I would agree with you in the part that I enjoy teaching the ED endings. What I find problematic is, and I was after teaching it for a while, that I was like, I don't know if it actually matters that much. The difference between the t and the d. because in a way the vowel before it forces
That
that
doesn't matter.
almost in a way. Like it's really hard not to do it. The thing is the extra syllable or not. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the
And
priority.
no one's going to misunderstand you for a duh ending instead of a t
opened
ending, are they? You know? It's kind
No.
of,
Yeah.
No, but that's not the issue, is it? The issue
Yeah.
is the work it and use it.
yeah.
That's the
true.
issue.
So you don't mind teaching it, but you'd like it to go away as a pronunciation area.
Yeah, I would very much welcome it being put in room
Focus on-
101 just so I could,
Yeah.
have a breather.
Just have a little break from it.
Yeah.
Forget
Okay.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not wholly convinced, I don't think. Anyway, Lindsay, can you give us your offering?
Okay, my one is intonation. Okay, so I think like recently over the past 15, 20 years, maybe, more focus on intonation. Certainly in materials that I've been writing for publishers, editors, and stuff like that. I remember when I started teaching, it was all about like sounds, like the ship and sheep book kind of thing. Don't do so much of that anymore. So now it's intonation. And that's fine for like simple things like, does your intonation rise on a yes, no question? Like, do you like chocolate? Do you like chocolate? See, even there, I'm beginning to doubt myself, as opposed to a WH question. Where are you from? Right? Where are you from? Going down. But I always find it's like I always get myself in a terrible mix. Sort of like, does it go up? Does it go down? Is it an up, down? And then like, how do I draw that on the board? If I've got it written on the board, I'm trying to do it. I'm like, okay, so it kind of goes up and down here. And maybe that's just my own shortcomings. Anyone else have that trouble where you're like, here, it goes, like I can easily do a thing going up at the end, but there's like the up, down. And could someone make that for me again? Because I'm drawing a blank on it. Like an up, down, and is that?
It's like there's also this massive so what, it's kind of, I
That's
think
true. It's
things
much,
like
much
pausing
better.
and chunking and sentence stress and content word stress and all that kind of thing is really where it breaks down. If your voice is going up on a statement rather than down, then maybe you're Australian. It's kind of that. I'm teaching it. It's hellish. I can't hear it. My students certainly. I agree with you totally. Yep.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's... I mean, I know some people have said it's not really even necessary. Like it comes from...
Well, I think the thing
anyway.
is to... But then it's hard to sort of say this or to put it into materials. Is often it's sort of like just improve your range. So you get rid of the student. You don't want the student sounding too monotone. But aside from sort of saying you have to try to sound more interested... like widen your range when you I mean, it's just hard to kind of break it down into like go up and then down here, as opposed to listen to how I'm saying it and say it like that. Like, how are you? Now you say it, as opposed to like trying to draw the arrow going up and down or whatever, right?
So are you objecting to the arrows or the up and down itself?
I don't know. I just find it, it's like the whole thing I would just like to put away in the room. That's like all of it.
All right. I'm going to be slightly controversial and not just and not have a point. I'm going to have a thing. I'd like to get rid of the phonemic chart.
Okay, here we go.
That is controversial.
It's about time. We haven't had a controversial one.
I'm hoping Adrian doesn't listen to this because I've got to work with him in the summer. But anyway,
you were talking about the Sound Foundation's pronunciation chart by Adrian Underhill. Yeah,
I am, yes. Yeah. And I think, while I can see purpose in the phonemic script, I think the phonemic chart can sometimes confuse students. And I think when they're being taught by me, especially whose vowel sounds don't really fall into the ones on the chart, they get very confused with it. And I remember, perhaps as a more inexperienced teacher, Czechs again use their own script. They have their own way of noting down phonemes. So it actually at times felt more confusing to try and go through the chart with them, because it was like having to teach them English and then teach them the chart on top of it. So
But you would actually what you're against is going systematically through the chart, or teaching the chart rather than the chart as a thing.
I think the chart on the wall of the classroom should be banned, since I can say it because it's Room 101 and nobody ever listens to the podcast.
So wait a second. Do you think so? You're not just talking about the chart. You're talking about phonetic script in general. Are you talking about the IPA should be
No,
gone?
I was trying to limit it to the chart, just so we didn't get too much.
The IPA as
But
well?
yeah, let's get rid of it. Get rid of it all. There you go.
No more IPA.
Can't
No
have
PIs.
that.
no.
Get rid of the IPA.
No.
Would have made my Delta a lot easier.
Too right.
That's true. The chart is amazing
Yeah,
to work with trainees. It's so brilliantly done. Like, it all makes sense where all the things are.
It does. I just thought I'd go for something slightly more interesting than can or in or ed or up or down. And I thought, give people a reason to listen to the podcast.
Sooner or later, we're gonna come down to the conclusion we put Shaun in room 101. I think.
Yeah. Well, I think many people have wanted to do that many times. I think
have
all
to
those
choose.
points about. I'll finish on. Actually, no. I need to.
And you can't choose your own. I don't
Yeah,
think.
I have to choose James, don't I? No, I'm choosing James. For the reason that means you've all had something put in room 101. So,
Oh, this is one of those game shows, then, is it?
yeah, that's how it works.
A pity vote, but I'll take it.
Right. Anyway, that was much fun. It was great. Thank you for your thoughts and input on that, lady and gentlemen. So that was room 101. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Feel free to comment. You know how to find us. I'll hand over to my 3 roundtable colleagues for them to say their goodbyes, and I'll see you next episode.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
As your commute is coming to an end, here is how you can play your own version of the 101 game. The game is useful as a speaking exercise, with students giving a spoken argument for why they like their thing and then asking and answering follow-up questions. Before the lesson, think of categories for the students to discuss. Remember, it's people talking about what they most dislike, so you might want to choose categories that are easy to talk about, for example, food, hobbies, and so on. In class, explain the concept of the game, illustrating with your own examples. Put the categories on the board and give the students time to prepare their argument for each. When everyone is ready, put the students into small groups and let them discuss their choices. If you want to add a competitive element, then each round can have a judge to decide which one choice from each category can be banished to room 101. You can find the instructions for these activities at our website, www.teflcommute.com. You've been listening to the TEFL Commute, an original podcast produced and presented by Lindsay Clanfield, Shaun Wilden and James Taylor. Don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing to us on iTunes and by visiting us at www.teflcommute.com.